A sloth can hold its breath for up to 40 minutes. A dolphin can manage about 8. Read that again if you need to. The slowest mammal on Earth outperforms one of the most intelligent ocean predators at the single thing you would assume dolphins were born to dominate. And the reason why will change how you think about what it actually means to be efficient. Let's start with what a sloth is, because most people get this wrong. A sloth is not lazy. That is the first lie your brain tells you when it sees one hanging from a branch, barely moving, eyes half closed like it just does not care. What you are actually looking at is one of the most finely tuned survival machines in the animal kingdom. Every single thing about a sloth's body is optimized for one radical strategy: use as little energy as possible at all times. And when you understand that strategy, the breath-holding record makes perfect sense. A three-toed sloth moves at a top speed of about 4 meters per minute. That is not a typo. 4 meters, in 1 full minute. Its metabolic rate is roughly 40 to 70% lower than what you would expect for a mammal its size. Its muscles contain a completely different ratio of muscle fiber types compared to almost any other mammal. Researchers at the Smithsonian Tropical Research Institute in Panama, including Rebecca Cliff, who has spent years dissecting sloth physiology down to the cellular level, found that sloths have a dramatically reduced muscle mass compared to similar-sized mammals. Their muscles make up only about 25 to 30% of their body weight. In most comparable animals, that number is closer to 40 or 50%. But here is the part that matters: what muscle they do have is packed with sloth fibers. These are the fibers designed for endurance, for holding tension, for doing one thing for a very long time without burning through fuel. Your body uses the same fibers when you hold a plank or hang from a bar. The sloth just never stops using them. Now here is where the breath-holding comes in. Sloths descend from the trees roughly once a week to defecate on the forest floor. This is one of the most dangerous moments of their entire lives. On the ground, they are vulnerable. Predators like jaguars and harpy eagles can reach them. So what happens during this weekly trip is essentially a masterclass in survival engineering. When a sloth needs to conserve oxygen, whether it is hanging motionless to avoid detection or slowly lowering itself to the ground, its body does something remarkable. It can voluntarily slow its heart rate by up to 75%. Jonathan Pauly, an ecologist at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, has studied sloth behavior extensively and documented how their cardiovascular system essentially downshifts into a mode that would be catastrophic for most animals. Their body temperature drops. Their breathing rate plummets. They enter a state that physiologists sometimes compare to a shallow form of torpor, except the sloth remains fully conscious and aware the entire time. It is not sleeping. It is not hibernating. It is deliberately throttling every system in its body to the absolute minimum needed to stay alive and stay alert. This is why a sloth can hold its breath for 40 minutes, not because its lungs are enormous, they are not. Not because it has some exotic blood chemistry, though it does have some unusual adaptations in how its blood binds oxygen. The real reason is that it simply does not need very much oxygen in the first place. Its brain is small. Its muscles are barely firing. Its heart is beating so slowly you might think it had stopped. A sloth at rest burns about 162 kilojoules per day. A human of similar size would burn roughly 8 times that amount. The sloth has essentially solved the energy problem by refusing to participate in it. A bottlenose dolphin, by contrast, is a marvel of high-performance engineering. It has a large, complex brain that demands constant glucose and oxygen. It maintains a core body temperature of around 37 degrees Celsius, the same as yours in water that can be dramatically colder. Its muscles are dense, fast-twitch dominant, built for explosive speed and sudden direction changes. A dolphin's body is designed to do one thing very well: move fast, think fast, react fast. And all of that costs energy. Lots of it. When a dolphin dives, it has a few remarkable adaptations. It can collapse its lungs to reduce nitrogen absorption. It redirects blood flow to its brain and vital organs through a system called the dive reflex. Its heart rate slows, though not nearly as dramatically as a sloth's. A dolphin can hold its breath for about 8 to 10 minutes under normal conditions, and some species have been recorded holding it for up to 15 minutes during deep dives. That is genuinely impressive for an animal that spends its entire life in water and needs to surface to breathe air. But 40 minutes is 40 minutes. The sloth wins, not because it is stronger or faster or smarter. It wins because it has made a choice at the evolutionary level that most animals never consider, the choice to need less. Adriano Chiarello, a researcher at the University of São Paulo who has studied sloth locomotion and energetics across multiple species, points out something that reframes the entire conversation. Sloths did not evolve to be slow. They evolved to be efficient. Those are very different things. Speed is expensive. Every movement you make, every thought you think, every heartbeat that pushes blood through your body costs fuel. The sloth has found a way to cut that cost to almost nothing. It eats leaves, some of the least nutritious food available in the rainforest, and still survives, still reproduces, still thrives in one of the most competitive ecosystems on the planet. It does this by refusing to waste a single calorie on anything that is not strictly necessary. And here is the part that should genuinely unsettle you. Sloths are actually excellent swimmers. This surprises most people, but it should not. When a sloth falls from a tree into a river, which happens more often than you might think, it does not panic. It extends its long arms, tucks its body into a streamlined shape, and swims with a slow, deliberate breaststroke. It can cross rivers. It can move between patches of forest separated by water. Bryson Voirin, a behavioral ecologist who has spent years tracking sloths in Panama, has documented them swimming across wide channels with calm, methodical efficiency. And because they can hold their breath for so long, they can stay submerged for extended periods if a predator is nearby. They can literally outlast a threat by sinking to the bottom of a river and waiting. Think about what that means. An animal that moves at 4 meters per minute on land becomes an effective, patient, nearly silent swimmer in water. An animal that looks helpless is, in context, almost untouchable. There is a moth that lives exclusively in sloth fur. The sloth moth, its real name is Cryptis calope, lays its eggs in sloth dung. The larvae develop there, the adults fly up into the canopy, find a sloth, and burrow into its coat. The algae that grows in the sloth's fur, which gives it that greenish tint, feeds the moths. The moths, in turn, may provide nitrogen to the sloth through decomposition when they die in its fur. Jonathan Pauly and his colleague Zachariah published research in 2014 showing that this relationship might actually help the sloth acquire nutrients it cannot get from leaves alone. The sloth is so slow, so metabolically minimal, that entire ecosystems form on its body. It is not just an animal, it is a habitat. Here is where this stops being about sloths and starts being about you. Your body burns roughly 2,000 calories a day just to keep you alive, breathing, circulating blood, maintaining temperature, firing neurons. That is your baseline cost for existing as a human being. Every thought you have, every movement you make, every problem you solve is an additional expense on top of that. Your brain alone uses about 20% of your total energy, even though it is only 2% of your body weight. You are, from a purely metabolic perspective, spectacularly expensive to operate. The sloth looked at the cost of living and found a way to cut it to almost nothing. You, on the other hand, live in a world that constantly demands you spend more. More attention, more productivity. More speed, more output, and every system in your body pays the price for that demand. Your cortisol stays elevated, your sleep gets shorter, your resting heart rate creeps up. You are a dolphin in a world that would actually benefit from a little more sloth. The sloth did not win by being faster. It did not win by being stronger. It won by needing less. And in a world that tells you the answer is always more hustle, more speed, more output, the slowest mammal on Earth is quietly holding its breath for 40 minutes, surviving on food that would starve anything else, and outlasting every expectation. Sometimes the smartest thing your body can do is not try so hard.